Hi students, welcome to the massive open online course on international economics. In today's module, we will talk about offer curves and international equilibrium. This is module number 4. Before I go into the detailed discussion of module number 4, that is offer curve and international equilibrium, students, I want to request you to remember that in module 3 we also discussed something that is related to this offer curve. But if you can distinctly remember the topic that we discussed in module 3, that was offer curve and terms of trade. So in module 4 we also discuss offer curve but not the terms of trade but international equilibrium. So the idea of that thing is that it is a kind of departure from terms of trade focus to the focus on international equilibrium. And as a student of economics, we all know that equilibrium means there is a demand-supply equality, and that demand-supply equality must be at a given price or price ratio. So the price ratio is the terms of trade. Let me again help you to remember what I did in my last module. In my last module, I tried to define very briefly the offer curve and then tried to connect this with the terms of trade. Now, what is terms of trade? Terms of trade is the terms at which trade takes place. Terms means the price or the price ratio. Price of what? Price of the good that one country is selling and the price of the good that the country is buying. So when I am using these two words, buying and selling, this automatically indicates at the existence of another country from whom or from which I am buying or selling the good. So the bottom line is that terms of trade defines the price ratios of two countries. Price ratios of two countries means price ratio of exportable and importable for country 1 or country 2 or country A and country B or country home or country foreign. But there is no guarantee that these two price ratios are equal. If these two things are not equal, we are not at equilibrium. So you understand the departure, the existence of terms of trade and the equilibrium. So all the terms of trades should not be the equilibrium terms of trade. Equilibrium should be one terms of trade. So we need to roll out the possibility of other terms of trade that may prevail in the pre-trade situation, but that may not prevail in the post-trade situation. One more thing I want to tell you at this juncture is that terms of trade could be defined in various ways. It could be price terms of trade, it could be quantity terms of trade, factorial terms of trade, double factorial terms of trade, etc. But for our analysis or for brevity, we would use the price terms of trade. Price terms of trade means price of exportable divided by the price of importable. This is the traditional definition of terms of trade. So Px by Pm, where X is my exportable and M is my importable. So that's the basic platform on which I need to develop some ideas, and we need to approach towards defining and determining the international equilibrium means the international terms of trade which is acceptable by all the trading partners and everybody is happy. Because if you remember, student, while defining offer curve, I told you time and again that offer means it's a kind of matching game between export and import. So I'm exporting something, so I'm happy, that is why I'm willing to export. But I am exporting this commodity or the amount of a good to someone, but I am not sure whether that someone, quote and unquote, he is happy with that. If he is happy, then the offer matches. If he is not, then the offer does not match. So that is not a offer that is there in the international trade analysis. So the point is that quantity offer for a good should match for both the partners. It could be X, it could be Y, it could be Z, it could be A, B, C, anything. But at the same time, students, remember, if I say that I'm exporting one apple and in exchange of that, I want one computer, is it possible? You ask yourself. It is definitely not. If it is definitely not the case, then what is the reason? The reason is that the price of apple is not exactly equal to the price of computer. So it is not only the quantity, but also the price. So the point that I want to make here at this point is that the value of the offer should match. Value means price multiplied by quantity. So the value that I'm willing to give should be exactly equal to the value that the counterpart is willing to accept. If that accepts, if that is satisfied, then the offer matches. So that's the basic idea of offer curve. Now we need to go one by one to describe all these things by intuition, by diagram. But I'm going to use a little bit of diagram, but I request you to listen to this thing very carefully because it's a subtle issue, but at the same time it's not very difficult to follow. I'll tell you which part you need to focus on, emphasize on, a very important way. So that will come in our analysis when the diagram comes into existence. But before that, so the offer curve is essentially introduced by Alfred Marshall. This Marshall is a great economist who actually helped us to understand how the equilibrium price ratio is established in international trade. So equilibrium price ratio, if you remember that I told you, this is the price ratio at which all the trading partners are happy. All the trading partners are satisfied with the volume that I buy and the volume that I sell. And the offer curve of a nation essentially shows how much of import commodity the nation requires. This is what I was saying. The nation requires in exchange for various quantities of its export commodity. So when I'm saying that export commodity and the quantity, so it automatically calls for the presence of the price. Because if I do not get an idea about the price of the commodity concerned, that I cannot say whether I am happy or I should go for it. So it shows the locus of pairs of home's export or country 1's export or country B's export and import demand at different terms of trade. And the terms of trade, student, you remember, it is the price ratio of your exportable divided by the importable. And if these two things are matching with each other, this is called, probably you remember that, this is called balanced trade. So trade is balanced means the value of export is equal to the value of import, and I'm happy only at that point. And the offer curve of a nation is derived from the nation's production possibility curve and its indifference map and the various hypothetical relative commodity prices at which trade takes place. I will explain you these things in more detail using a diagram. So our next target would be to explain the derivation of the offer curve in more details. Now students, let us first focus on figure number 1. And then I will tell you how can I relate figure 2 with figure 1. So there are two prices if you look at figure 1. One price ratio is PW0 and the other price ratio is PW1. So W stands for the relative price of home's export in the world market. So W stands for world and it is the relative price of home export. Why? Because P is the ratio of Px by Py. X stands for textile and Y stands for computer, or P is the ratio of this country's exportable divided by this country's importable. Now if we look at P0W at this price, the production equilibrium, as we all know, that takes place at the point of tangency between the price ratio and the production possibility frontier that you all know how to derive. So the production equilibrium takes place at the point B. So home country produces at point B. However, the home country following P0W price ratio, that is a kind of flatter line here. So the consumption point is at point C. Now you remember, student, what I said is that the production takes place at point B. This means that you are producing this much of exportable textile, and this much means this much of importable, which is computer. But if I look at the consumption equilibrium point C, the consumption equilibrium point C defines that we intend to consume this much of computer, whereas I produced only this much. So AC amount of computer is in excess demand, students. On the other hand, I produced this much of textile, but I don't want to consume this much of textile. Rather, I want to consume only this much of textile. So AB amount of textile is in excess supply here. Now what I can do with that? I have some excess supply of textile and I have some excess demand for computer. So given the option, I will go for this kind of exchange where AB amount of textiles could be exchanged for AC amount of computer. So I am going to put this offer that are you ready to accept AB amount of textile? If someone says, yes, I am ready, sir, I am ready to accept AB amount of textile. So the next point, in exchange of AB amount of textile, I want to get AC amount of computer. Are you ready to give me AC amount of computer? If the country is ready, then the exchange takes place. And that is what trade is. So this ACB is nothing but my trade triangle. So this means that AB amount of export is done in exchange of AC amount of import. So what is happening when the price ratio is P0W? At this price ratio, my export means say it is country 1 or home. Country home exports AB amount of textile if this country gets AC amount of computer. So if the country gets less than AC amount of computer, country is not willing to export AB amount of textile if the price ratio is P0W. What is that? Say the price of apple is rupees 10 and then I agree that I am going to give you 10 apples in exchange of 2 pens, because in the hindsight I am comparing the value of 10 apples. 10 apples value is rupees 100 and the price of pens is rupees 100. If that is okay, then it's fine. But if for some reason the price of pen changes or the price of apple changes, say the price of apple is now 15 each apple. So total value of 10 apples is 150. So I am not happy with 2 pens. So what I need to do? I need to get more pens. I need to get 3 pens. So if the price ratio changes, the quantity of export that I am willing to give someone and in exchange of something that I am willing to accept must change. So this offer is a function of price ratio. So that's the basic idea, driving force behind the derivation of the offer curve. So here, look, for a higher relative price P1W, when the relative price is like a dotted line, dashed one, so PW1, a larger export offer is needed. Look at the trade triangle now, because the production equilibrium has been moved from point B to B prime now, and the consumption equilibrium has been moved from C to C prime now. So what is the implication? Is that A prime B prime is now the exportable amount in exchange of A prime C prime of importable commodity, and importable commodity is computer. So at a price P1W, when relative price is steeper means the price of textile is higher. Now students, forget about the diagram. I want to pose one question. The question is that if the price of textile goes up, are you willing to export more of that in exchange of same amount of importable? Definitely no, because you know that the price of textile is higher now, so you should export less amount to compensate for the equal amount of importable commodity that you have imported before. So in that case, the exchange commodities or the ratio of commodities or the quantities of exportable and importable must change, and this is exactly what is happening. So that this is a steeper TOT line means that the home country can exchange successively smaller additional units of exports sufficient to finance successively larger additional units of import demand. So that's very apparent, and which is what I explained. And when these balanced trade pairs are plotted in a separate diagram, what I'm going to get? I'm going to get a kind of curve that is shown here. It is like a positively sloping one. But at the same time, students, please remember that the offer curve of a country must be convex to the axis where I am measuring the export of that country. And the export of my country is textile, home country's export is textile, and this textile is exportable and importable is computer, and that is why this is. And also one more thing is that the offer curve must start from origin, because at origin everything is zero. So at this price ratio you are not willing to export anything, and if you are not willing to export anything, there should not be any quantity of import. So this is for the home country. But there is this same kind of explanation you can use for deriving the offer curve for the foreign country. So what I said is that the foreign offer curve is nothing but a mirror image of the home offer curve. So why this is the thing? Because if you look at the diagram, students, here on the horizontal axis I'm measuring the export of the home country. And for different price ratios, if you look at the diagram, students, P0W, P1W, or for other price ratios, what we are going to get? We are going to get different combinations of exportable and importable that is satisfactory for both the trading partners. So now if I consider all these price ratios and connect all the points, then I'm going to get B, B prime, following this equilibrium points, C, C prime. Then if I connect all these things, this would be the offer curve of the home. But now, remember students, the export of the home is ideally the import of the foreign country. So now, textile is the export of the home and computer is the import of the home. Therefore, for the foreign economy, computer is the export of the foreign and textile is the import of the foreign. What I said is that the offer curve of a country should be convex to the axis where the export of that country is measured. For home economy, textile is the home export. That is why the offer curve is like this. So what is going to happen for the foreign economy? For the foreign economy, computer is foreign's export. Home imports that commodity that is being exported by the foreign. So foreign's export is computer, and this is measured along the vertical axis here. Therefore, the foreign offer curve must be convex to the axis where foreign countries' exportable commodity is measured, and foreign countries' exportable commodity is computer, which is measured along the vertical axis. Therefore, foreign countries' offer curve must be convex to the axis where foreign's export is measured. So the foreign offer curve should be like this one, students, and the home offer curve must be like this one. And one more thing I want to mention at this juncture is that both the countries concerned here in our analysis are large enough. Large enough means they are sufficiently large to influence the international price. And in that case only we are going to have usual offer curve, which is positively sloping, starting from the origin and convex to the axis where the export of that country is measured. Now, in brief, what are the things that I explained? This is the home offer curve. This home offer curve essentially gives me different combinations of export and import corresponding to different prices. So when the prices means price ratios. Price ratio is price of exportable by price of importable. So price of exportable by price of importable is, say, PA, which is the lowest one. Here, home equilibrium takes place at this point. When the price ratio goes up, this takes place at this point. When the price ratio goes up further, takes place at this point. Similarly, for foreign, look, students, PB is equal to 1. So if I get a price line which is steeper than PB means it is rotating like this. In that case, if it is PF dashed, where the price ratio is greater than 1, so it is 2. So the foreign's offer is here now at this point, and it is PA prime, it is 4. Foreign's equilibrium offer is at this point. Now, if we connect these two things, or if we superimpose these two diagrams in a single figure, the equilibrium that we are going to get, because in post-trade situation, we cannot have multiple price ratios. This is the price ratio at which everybody is satisfied. And everybody means all the trading partners. So home and foreign are matching with their offers at a given price ratio. What is that price ratio? The price ratio that is consistent with the point that incidentally is on both the offer curves. So there is one point that is on both the offer curves. That is definitely the point origin. There is another point, if you look at the diagram very carefully, the only point where there is intersection, a single point defines the offer of both the countries, is at point E prime. Here, you connect these two things with the line, and this the equilibrium price ratio or the equilibrium terms of trade line. And in this diagram, this equilibrium terms of trade line is PB is equal to PB prime, which is equal to 1, as I showed you in my previous diagram. So the intersection of the offer curves of the two nations defines the equilibrium relative commodity price at which trade takes place between them. And only at this equilibrium price will trade be balanced, means, here the value of export is equal to value of import for both the nations, and that is satisfied simultaneously. So here at point E or E prime, the defining equilibrium is Px by Py, where, as I said, Pb is equal to Pb prime, and which is equal to 1. And if you look at this diagram very carefully, at Pb price ratio, home offers 60 units of textile. If you look at this diagram, 60 units of textiles. And the 60 units of textile is also exchanged with 60 units of computer. This means what? The price of the textiles and the computers are same. Don't confuse. Textile means I'm not talking of one shirt or one trouser. It is a kind of bunch of things that is in a packet, on a box, that the value of that box is equal to the price of a computer, say price of any branded computer. So at point E, the home's offer curve is essentially here, and the foreigners offer exactly 60 units of computer in exchange of 60 units of textile. So that happens at point E prime. So E and E prime are essentially the same point. And that is why the trade is in equilibrium at point E when the price ratio is defined by PB, which happens to be equal to PB prime, or which is equal to PB prime as equal to 1. So at any other relative price other than Px by Py, which is equal to PB, the desired quantities of imports and exportables of both the countries or commodities would not be equal, and that is, you can see, that is very apparent from the diagram. I'll show you. And this would put pressure on the relative commodity price to move towards the level of equilibrium. So now think of this thing. So here is one diagram. So the same diagram is reproduced here. Now consider that this is a point which is 40. So 40 units of textile is giving satisfaction to the home economy if home gets 40H, this amount of computer from the foreign economy. Now, you look what is happening when this 40 units of textile is going to be exchanged with the computer following the foreign offer curve. So foreign offer curve gives you what? Foreign offer curve says that this 40 unit of textile should be equal to the amount of computer which is greater than 40H. And what is that? If you extend this line and go on extending this line until and unless it reaches a point where the line intersects with the foreign offer curve. What is the implication? So this 40 units of textile matches with the demand of 40H unit of computer. So the home demands 40H units of computer in exchange of 40 units of textile. But this demand of 40H units of computer should come from the supply of the foreign economy. The foreign economy says what? Foreign economy says that, that's fine, no problem. I'm going to accept your 40 units of textile, but in exchange of 40 units of textile, you need to allow me to give you this much of computer, but you wanted 48 units of computer. So what is the implication? Implication is that your demand for computer is much less than the supply of computer by the foreign economy. If the demand is less than supply, what will happen? There is excess supply of computer in the market. If there is excess supply of computer in the market, then the price of computer should go down. If price of computer goes down, and mind it, price of computer is your importable. And your terms of trade means your price of exportable by price of importable. And your importable is computer. If the computer price goes down, the price of computer is in the denominator of the ratio. Therefore, the denominator goes down means the value of this ratio is going to go up, means you are moving away from this price ratio is defined by PF. If this price ratio goes up, you have a tendency to come back to this price ratio. So the equilibrium that has already been achieved at E is definitely the stable equilibrium. So therefore, here there is automatic tendency that you need to come back to the position which you achieved before, and if it is the normal shape of a curve, but it may not be the normal shape of a curve. The normal shape of a curve could be like, this thing and intersecting with each other. But if it is like, shoelace kind of shape or heart shaped, then you can check that all these points are not equilibrium. So this shoelace kind of diagram shown beside, both the offer curves bend backward and crosses each other more than once, unlike the previous diagram. Offers match for 3 trade bundles A, B and C, of which A and C are stable. Stable means if you start from any other price ratio except A and C, you can find that there is a natural tendency to come back to A and C. But B is not the stable equilibrium. If you move away from B, there would be a tendency that you will go further and further. So that is unstable equilibrium. So the shape of the offer curve defines whether the equilibrium is stable or not. Before I end today's module on offer curve and international equilibrium, I want to tell you one thing, that whether the international equilibrium is stable or not, that has something to do with Marshall-Lerner condition. Marshall-Lerner condition talks about that the elasticity of import demand by the foreign country or the home country, these should be equal to or greater than 1. And it has something to do with devaluation. Because when we go for devaluing currency of a country, we expect that the trade balance will improve. Trade balance will improve means you are going to export more and you are going to import less if the devaluation is effective. That crucially depends on whether the Marshall-Lerner condition is satisfied. Means that crucially depends on where your offer curves are intersecting with each other, whether that are defining the stable equilibrium points or not. So keep all these things in mind. I hope this idea of international equilibrium and terms of trade and offer curve would help you to a great extent to understand all these trade policy and trade theory related issues in other modules to come. Thank you very much, students.